Hey everyone, so today I wanted to talk about a place I went to visit. It's called the Philippines. My wife's Filipino. We went to visit there for family-related reasons, but we did have leftover time to take vacation, so we did take vacation when we were there. Um, so I guess I wanted to go over like the different positives and negatives about when I was there, and I apologize to anyone I might offend or upset by saying the things I say, because it's gonna probably appear to be like I have more bad things to say than good things, but I promise you, I did enjoy my stay a lot more than I felt it was negative. And I appreciate all those that helped us and stuff when we were down there. Like, thank you to my mom for providing us with the money to go down there, loaning and giving us the money to do it. And also to my wife's relatives, like Lolo Tom, Lola Lisa, um, John Renz for taking me around, being my guide. Baby Lynn, I don't know if that's actually your name. That's always what I heard people call you, Baby Lynn. Maybe it's just Lynn, but Baby Lynn, Gyros, May, Gladys. There's others I'm not thinking of. There was a lot of people that helped us. They're very accommodating. They helped us out quite a bit. Anyways, so to start off, I kind of want to mention the pros and the cons I heard. I heard from people before I went down there, so from fellow Canadians that visited and from Filipinos that come to Canada that I spoke to. So the first things are pros were it's very beautiful. Everything's beautiful down there. The people are all beautiful. All the people are friendly all the time and happy. There's so many different fun things to do, and they're easy to do. Everything's cheap. And a common phrase I heard all the time was, "It's better there." That's what people said to me all the time. It's better there. Anyways, but we'll talk about that phrase later, I'm sure. And then the negative things that were mentioned to me is bugs are bad, crime is bad, don't trust local officials, and that there's a lot of poor people. So now that I highlighted all those things, I kind of want to go over what I felt my experiences were down there. The pros and the negatives, of course, the pros and the cons. So we'll start with the pros to get that and set it off on a happy note. The nature there was very beautiful. I seen a lot of beautiful things like their forests, all the flora and fauna were beautiful. There was waterfalls that we seen, beautiful beaches and oceans. There were some monkeys I got to play with. And rice fields. I thought rice fields were super beautiful to look at from afar and even up close. The bugs were a little bad up close, but I mean it was fun to walk around the rice fields, like follow the little paths on the side they had to balance on and stuff. And I thought that was really nice, and I thought it was kind of even relaxing to be in that environment. I'm sure the rice workers don't feel the same way, but I really enjoyed it. Now, another thing too with the nature I like there, just like on not people's land, that are trees and stuff would grow on people's property or on like city areas that would produce like food for them that just anyone could grab, which that was cool. Like there's a few spots where there's just mango trees or banana trees, and then there was this one tree that produced a green fruit that I've seen on people's properties and on the side of the street. I don't know what the green fruit's called. I asked a few people, no one knew what its name was, but it was when you bit into it, it was juicy if I remember correctly, but it was also very sour and similar texture and taste to a rhubarb. I really like rhubarb, so it was really yummy. If anyone knows the name of it, can you leave it in the comments, please? That way I can find out what it's called and see if I can get some for myself here. I really enjoyed that. And I guess to move past how beautiful the nature was, there was a lot of beautiful women, and I guess men there too. I'm more attracted to women, of course. But I don't think there are any more beautiful or any less beautiful than the ones we have in Canada, or probably other places in the world. Maybe I appreciate my wife too much to think there's other beautiful women. I don't know. So I guess maybe this isn't a positive thing necessarily. I guess what I'm saying is everyone's equal. Yeah, we'll go with that one. Except for my wife. My wife's more beautiful. Things about shopkeepers too. The shopkeepers were all very nice to me. It was really cool though about the shops. There's where we were staying. There's probably like 5 to 6 uh, home convenience store shops, all within like 5-minute walking distance, maybe not even 5 minutes. And these would sell various different things. And even though they were more expensive than going to the main store, still very cheap. Like 2 of their bottles of pop would equal 1 of our bottles of pop. But anyways, 1 of theirs would be about 11 pesos. And I think something like 45 pesos equals a Canadian dollar. So you can get pop very cheap down there. And other things very cheap. It was funny too. A funny story is pop was initially 11 pesos when I showed up. But I kept buying out all the pop because I drink a lot of pop, more pop than I should. And I bought out all the pop around the local area that it took like a day for everyone to restock, which is not a super big deal. But they couldn't provide pop for their customers. And because of that, they rose the prices 1 peso. So it was 12 pesos. And just before I left, it rose another peso. So it was 13 pesos by the time I left for 1 bottle, and I was told it was because I kept taking them out of stock that they had to raise the prices. So I thought that was funny, and I apologize to the other people that just wanted to buy pop. But yeah, another cool thing too is normally in the morning, but there was a few that went along through the day and near the end of the night. But there was always, for about 3 or 4 hours in the morning, every 15 minutes or so, there was shopping cart people would walk by, like people walking by with carts, and they'd sell stuff out of it. I thought that was really cool. It was almost always food, at least, especially the first few were always food. But sometimes there was ones with kids' toys and stuff in it, and there's one time where they're even selling like really good pots and pans that were really nice, and stuff like that. I always thought that was pretty cool. And I enjoyed doing the things I could do down there in the Philippines. We didn't have a lot of money, like I said, that I had to borrow some money from my mom. And so we didn't have a ton of money when we were there. And I've got a few paychecks I was down there too, of course. That wasn't super bad. But despite everything being cheap, our money still only went so far. But we did get to enjoy some things we did. Like we went to a private island that was super cool. I enjoyed that. We went to a few carnivals. That was neat. The Mall of Asia was fun to go to. Things like that. We did a variety of different things that were enjoyable. And I did find too that the women were extra polite to me. Like a lot of the men were more standoffish, they're less wanted to talk to me, but I'm kind of a standoffish person too, so maybe that has more to do with it. Maybe my ego's too high, and that's why I think the women were politer. I don't know. But I observed that women were way more politer than the men down there. But in general, I felt people that were nicer to me I got the impression that they were nice to me because of my skin color. Expecting that maybe I had lots of money. I don't know. But anyways, the most important positive thing that came of my trip down there was I've always had stomach issues as a kid, as far as I can remember from elementary school, and they've progressively gotten worse through my life or whatever. The pains would get worse, and I'd pass a lot of blood and other whatnot, stuff that you guys probably don't want to hear about. And when I went to the Philippines about a week and a half after being there, pretty much all my symptoms were gone but one. And it was I gotta say, it's really changed my life. It's hard to say, like, I'm not trying to get corny or anything, but I feel so much better. Like, it's just really hard to explain. Like, I'm way happier. I used to dread eating. Like, if you asked my wife, she would always complain because I always avoid eating a lot of foods because I was afraid I might get pains. I still ate a lot, but I mean, like, there was quite a few dishes that I just wouldn't eat because I was worried I'd get pain. But yeah, since I've got back, I've had a few symptoms, but for the most part, it's still pretty much gone. Now I expect it'll come back. My doctor has now think that I have a sugar-related issue. So when I was in the Philippines, most of the food that was available to me was low to no sugar, or like added sugar, I should say. So the amount of sugar I was consuming was far less. Even in their pop has far less sugar in it, stuff like that. So, and I did drink less pop down there too, because their pop doesn't taste good. But anyways, the point is that that it is something I might not have experienced if I didn't go to the Philippines. And even if their sugary foods were just as good, I'd probably still be more apt, or I probably still would have consumed less sugar, because there's quite a bit of variety for food down there compared to here. And I'm not talking about just weird exotic foods, just in general, there's way more variety to choose from, like many different stores. Like here, if you want to go to like a store to go out to eat, you pretty much have to pick a burger joint of some kind. I guess you got like Subway and like the Pita Pit, but for the most part, if you want to eat affordably, you'd have to pick up like a burger joint. Where down there, there's lots of fast food type things that sell better, healthier foods. I'm sure they're not exactly healthy, but healthier. And I guess just to leave that note on the best thing, let's roll into the negatives now. The littering down there was so bad. The water is bad. Like the rivers, especially in the cities and stuff, minutes before getting there by car, you can smell them. And when you see them, they're green. Like, or different colors even. Sometimes not green, just different colors in general. And you can see just garbage floating down them. Yeah, it was pretty bad, and people seem not to care about littering. Like we discussed with them, they used to think that it was odd for me to care about whether or not to litter or not, or stuff like that. Like I'd pick up garbage just around the area we were staying, and people thought that was strange. But like it was a concept they just struggled with to understand. A lot of people, like they were like, why does it matter if there's garbage on the ground or not? But like my wife, she hadn't been there for like 8 years or something, I forget what it was. And the river that they used to bathe in and clean their clothes in and stuff like that, and people no longer used it now because it was so polluted. So people aren't making that connection. Like maybe 8 years is a long time, but I mean, in an 8-year span, if the rivers are becoming unusable, that's really bad. But from what I observed, I think like if everybody in their community put in a couple hours a week to clean up their area, it would become clean within like a year's time. Now there was a lot of poor people down there too, and a lot of beggars. Beggars don't really bother me too much. They seem to bother Nisi's family way more than they bothered me. And people always tell me, oh, don't give the beggars money, it'll encourage them to beg. I guess that's a problem around here too. We have panhandlers and stuff in where I live. Much fewer, of course, but they say don't help them here too. But they have more services here for them available that they wouldn't have in the Philippines. And I tend to give people here money too, so I give people there a little bit of money there too. And I'm sure all the people in the streets don't use it for drugs and whatnot. Like, I don't know the statistics behind it, but I'd like to believe at least some of it goes towards the food for them or their families. And crime in general was there. Like the very first day we were there, which my wife's from there, got tricked into paying some kind of service fee or whatever when we first came. It was something like 500 pesos, which isn't very much money. I think it's like $15. Maybe I'm wrong, less than that or something. But a duty charge, I think that's what they called it, a duty charge. And it turns out it was just some guy that shouldn't have been where he was that charged us that. Anyways, and there's a few other instances of things like that happen. I won't get into it too much. But a lot of petty crimes were, like, we were victims of a few petty crimes in our time down there. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Another thing too when we were there is, it's not just our disbelief. Me and my wife played a little game at a couple of shops where I would go in and buy something, or my wife would go in and buy something, but we'd always buy the same thing, and we would see what the cost was. And a lot of times when I would buy it, it would cost more than my wife. Not a whole lot more, but enough that I was like, why is there even any more of a charge? But yeah, like when there was one kid's toy that we went to buy, my wife this was probably the biggest difference, but we're talking small scale money anyways, but like she bought a toy for our daughter for 20 pesos, and I went and bought the same toy, and I had to pay 80 pesos. So it was like 4 times the cost for the exact same toy. Now, and I know 80 pesos is only like $2 Canadian, but like there was always like, there's generally about like a 50 peso charge extra on like everything I would buy if I was present. So whenever she went to buy stuff, generally that we cared about or spent a lot of money, she would go by herself. So I wasn't there, which is a shame because I wanted to kind of observe or heckle prices down with people, but people wouldn't really be like, people were a lot more hard stuck on their prices when I would try to heckle them. So it made the whole idea less fun for me personally, but maybe I'm just being a penny pincher. I should be, because they live in more poverty situations than I do. Maybe I shouldn't have been doing that so much. Who knows? Another thing too is there's a lot of guards down there for everything. Guards in the mall. Like the mall has people with sniper rifles and shotguns and pistols just walking everywhere. Armed guards everywhere. And I think that's funny. But yeah, so and most of them weren't very nice. Like a few of them smiled to us, and even one bowed to us. But for the most part, they were just kind of rude and standoffish. I don't know. Maybe that's just something. It's not a big deal to mention. I don't know. It just seemed kind of stupid to me. And another thing, this negative thing I'm about to mention is our thing that's a con. A lot of people are probably gonna get mad at for me saying, but when I was in Canada, all the Filipinos I had seen or observed were very hard workers. Like you expected a high quality of work from them, and you got it. Your expectations were met, and even sometimes better. So I expected to see a lot of hardworking people down in the Philippines, but when I got there, there's a lot of lazy people. I'm a very lazy person, but like I can't explain like how they're lazy. They're lazy in a different way, like a lazy in a way like they don't want to progress their own life. They don't think it's their responsibility. I don't know, like maybe it's unfair for me to make this judgment or opinion of them, but that's very much how I felt about a lot of the Filipinos I had seen or observed down there. And another thing too is volunteering. I tried to arrange for a few voluntary activities to do cleanup and stuff. And thank you to Baby Lynn and John Rans for helping me arrange it. They managed to get some people together to help me volunteer, which is a positive thing. But for the most part, people I spoke to about volunteering, it seemed like a concept that seemed stupid to them, or like, why would you help? Or, yeah, like one of the things someone told me was, it doesn't make sense for someone to help someone else at a cost to themselves. No one would do that. So it was weird for me to observe, and I won't mention who, but I went to a few organizations nearby and asked them to help with this cleanup. And they had told me, like, oh, we'll help you clean up, but you have to clean up just like our area, like our things and stuff. And like, that's how we'll do it. And I was like, no, we have to help everyone, or it's not really like meaningful. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was kind of self-centered of them. Like, they expected that you are to help them, and they aren't to help others. It's supposed to be a two-way street. So, thanks to Baby Lynn and Renz, though, we managed to clean up some of the street. And I had a good time. I did notice that the people that did help us, and I'm thankful they helped us, they didn't seem to understand, like, the time frame I was expecting people to work for. Like, I was expecting people to volunteer more of the time in that sitting than they did. But I won't say any more than that because I don't want anyone to get upset at me. Another thing, too, is I did have a very strong distrust of some of the local officials down there, like the cops and stuff. I didn't have to interact with them really, but they did seem really stern or whatever. They didn't like put off a very positive attitude about themselves. So I don't know really how to explain. Like, it was very strong, like them versus others mentality. And I did feel too when I was down there, a lot of people only seemed to like me because I was white or because I was a foreigner. Maybe I just misread that, and it's more to do with my standoffish personality. But I did get the impression that people liked me mostly because they thought I had money. In reality, I really don't have money. Like, I get that my money goes far down there, but where I'm at, my money doesn't really go super far. And I think most people that live where I live would understand that idea and understand what I'm trying to say. And that was one thing too when I was there. People like own land and stuff, like they take over a plot of land and stuff, but they don't have to pay like property tax and stuff like that. And there's some things that just don't have a cost down there that we have a cost down here for. Excuse me, like in Canada we're taxed a lot, and I'm actually super supportive of that tax. I think the problem is how our taxes is being spent by our officials and not the collection of taxes. That's the problem. But they don't seem to understand there's a huge difference and stuff like that from here versus there. Another thing too is, although there was a variety of food I could try and taste, and that the food was much healthier down there, a lot of food didn't taste good, especially like equivalents, like the foods like we would have here, like Pepsi and Coke, McDonald's, stuff like that, all tasted worse down there. And I don't know if that is, maybe it's the lack of sugar, who knows, but it doesn't taste nearly as good. And their meat patties don't look like meat at all. I'm not really going to question that though. But I think John Wren's uncle, I don't know, maybe he's related to Nisi in some way. I apologize for not knowing that. He was very nice to us, very nice to me, and he made me some meals, went out of his way to make me meals that he knew I would eat. And so did Lola Lisa. She made a few meals for me that she knew that I would eat, because she noticed I wasn't eating some mornings because I would avoid eating the food. Yeah, and another thing down there, which is, I guess it's normal not just in the Philippines, but in other parts of the countries. Like, I think in Germany I heard it was like this, but I was expected to pay for everything, even the washrooms. Like, I got charged, I think it was like 20 pesos to use a washroom at a market. And when I went into the washroom, there wasn't even running water or lights. Like, I was just peeing in a hole, and they charged me 20 pesos. And like I said, I guess I've heard in Germany do the similar thing, but to me it's a stupid concept. To me, a washroom's like someone's right. Like, everyone should have access to proper washroom facilities if they're available. Yeah, and I guess that's really everything bad I have to say. A few more things I just kind of want to note on before I finish is thank you to Nisi's uncles too that took us out driving around. Your names has lapsed from my memory from the moment. This is why I should have stuff written down on my screen. But yeah, thank you for taking us out driving. I had a few good conversations with them too. They were very opening to listening to my points of view, because I like to express my political points of view, and they were very nice to hear what I had to say about their country, despite the fact they may have come off negative. Others weren't as well appreciative as my point of view. I don't know what to say. And the same with Lolo Tom. He also listened to a few of the things I had to say and seemed relatively good about it. And he also started a conversation with me and stuff about it, so it was good. And another point too is I was worried, because a problem here in Canada is my wife and their family stuff will often forget that I only speak English and only understand English. So they'll talk their own language and I'll kind of get left out. And this does annoy me quite a bit, and I was worried that'd be like that in the Philippines. But they were very accommodating to me down there, especially the people around Nisi. They tried their best. And I understood that some people down there didn't speak English, or a lot of people down there didn't speak English, so there was other ways to try to accommodate me. Like John Renz, like I said, he took me out a lot, and he was my guide. He did his very best to make sure I understood everything that was being said to me, and I really appreciate that. Another point too, when I was down there, is even though they told me the bugs were really bad down there are a ton of bugs down there. But if you left them alone, they for the most part left you alone. But here in Canada, or at least in New Brunswick where I live, the mosquitoes will find you, especially if you're near a water source or near a forest. Like I live in the city of Fredericton, but I'm a little excluded in my little area. Like I live up by a forest, and at the bottom of my street there's a river. And the mosquitoes are horrible here. Like I'm used to it, but there was a huge difference from here to there and then back again, noticing the bug difference. And another thing that kind of stuck out to me was there was this is just a random thing that just burned into my mind for some reason. There's this pretty girl or whatever lady, and I'm driving by on one of these tricycles. That's another cool thing too. They have these tricycles or whatever you want to call them. They're like people have motorbikes with little carts with a wheel on the side of them. That's how you ride around for taxis and stuff. And the people don't need driver's license to drive those around. But anyways, we travel in those. And when we were traveling in one of these, there's a pretty lady or whatever, and she just turns around, pulls down her pants, and starts shitting in the river. Like it was just a really strange experience for me to see. I guess like I wanted to look away, but it was just one of those things that you're just like your eyes were plied looking at it, being like, why is this happening? But I guess washroom facilities in a lot of areas aren't easy to come by, and people just normally use the washroom in the river, even if it's on the side of the street. I guess that was normal. And I want to be clear too. I realize with all the comments I've made that the Filipinos have it very rough down there. A lot of Filipinos do, and money's hard to come by for a lot of them. So it's very tough. So, and a lot of the things I have to say are only through my point of view. Like I can never really understand things from their point of view, right? Like I'm very limited in that regard. And one more thing that kind of stuck out in my mind, an experience that I remember, that we were trying to climb into these buses to get from one city to the next. And it was one of those things where there's no lines. People just rush on to get onto the bus, and you just climb on from the back to get in. And you have to find a seat. Anyway, so I kept getting pushed out of the way. And then finally, I was about to get on, and a pregnant lady pushes me off. And my wife's family was upset because I didn't object or try to do anything to get back on the bus. But, like, what do you do? Like, there wasn't a lot to do. And that lady was very rude. I don't care that she was pregnant. She was just very rude. But there was nothing I could do, right? So me and my family had to wait, right? Like, because they obviously weren't going to go without me. It was just a poor experience. And for that, like I said, there was just a lot of poor experiences like that. But overall, it was fun, and I had more fun than I didn't have fun. But like I said, I have a lot of opinions about what's wrong there. What I think is wrong, like here in Canada, a lot of people often tell me, well, more people tell me that I'm a right-wing person than a left-wing, like I lean politically on the right. But down there, I was definitely left-leaning compared to everyone else. And that's another thing too. Filipinos, and I stopped at a couple other countries on the way there, so it's harder for me to gauge, but from my experience, at least Filipinos, very racist. Like, the kind of racism they have, we've abandoned already. And to them, they don't observe it as racist. And it's not racist like they beat up black people and stuff like that. Just, they have preconceived notions based on your race. And I'm not talking just because I'm white, but there was other instances where I heard them talking about other people or stuff, and I was just surprised that they were making judgments like that. And yeah, I guess that's yeah, I guess that's everything I have to say. Feel free to leave comments down what you have to say about what I said. If you disagree or agree, or I'm sure lots of Filipinos might get mad at with me about that, so I'm sorry. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more crappy videos from me. Anyways, thanks guys.